tell the audience what synthetic portfolios are, per se.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll use a really simple example. So this isn't a real example because this problem's been solved, but let's say you don't live in the United States. Technically speaking, it's difficult for you to buy stock that's traded on US exchanges. Now, the banks fixed all that. They've got a thing, where you can do it. But if you said, okay, I want to buy Apple stock, but I can't because I live in another country.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd say, okay, well, let me look at what I do have available and see if I can make a portfolio of stocks, bonds, whatever, put it all together that behaves like Apple stock.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, I've got the equivalent of having invested in Apple stock without actually investing in Apple stock.
Yep.
Now, obviously, there's easier ways to do that, right? You can actually invest in Apple stock. But if there's some difficult to construct portfolio or instrument that you will have a hard time constructing, then you probably want to make a simpler one that behaves similarly. And I first heard about it, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I get it immediately.
Yeah.
I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
I actually have an example. I mentioned that the origins of my company were in ETFs. One of the ETFs we wanted to do was a synthetic farmland ETF, something that had the ability to act like farmland, but it was in a tradable liquid instrument, right? So we had tons of conversations with different trading desks and trying to figure out how you would build a synthetic portfolio around doing it. We didn't end up pursuing it, but I totally understand. It's you trying to build exposure to an asset class or a type of investment without actually being invested in that type of investment or asset class, right?
Yeah, and we look at it a very mathematical way. We've actually got a white paper up on our LinkedIn page, which which basically describes how would you synthesize the S&P 500? Not how, but what would qualify as a synthetic version of the S&P 500, and we've got like 10 rules. Okay, it's got to meet this rule or it's not.
Give me an example of a rule.
One example would be, okay, if you break up your portfolio into sectors, whatever you bought, I'm just going to make this up, crazy example. Let's say I synthesized the S&P 500 only with bonds. All right, that's probably near impossible. Yeah. But let's imagine I did that. Then if I look at the returns of, say, the transportation sector, and I take my synthetic portfolio and I pull out the transportation sector and I look at the returns of my synthetic portfolio, that should also qualify as a synthetic
transportation
version of the sector.
Yeah.
So we have all these rules that say, okay, if it doesn't satisfy all these things, it's probably going to break. It's probably not going to work. Yep. And so we just, we put a white paper up. I'm pretty interested. They can look at it. It should be up there. But it definitely, we go into it very scientifically. Okay, if the assumption is that you have a synthetic version of something, then it must follow these rules.
Got it. That makes sense.